Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co host, Michele Kline of Kline Hospitality. How are you today, Michele?
Doing great, Stephanie. How are you?
Doing fabulous. Thank you. What do we have going on today?
What we have going on today, we have a special guest. We have Anna Schmid, who is Vice President of Communications and Partnerships at the Venetian here in beautiful Las Vegas. Anna, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Although it's nice and chilly in Las Vegas right now, not our normal
Yes,
warm,
it
comfortable.
is. Yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being here and helping us enlighten those on the other side. Anna, tell us a little bit about your career and what it is that you do today.
Okay, great. I always answer that question with how much time do you have, but I know we don't have all day. So, my career in hospitality has spanned just over 30 years now. So I did get my degree. I grew up in Texas, and I happened upon hospitality not because I had to be in hotels right out of high school. Not I don't think most of us even realized that was a career path 30 years ago. But I had started off with a degree in international business. And then when I transferred universities, there was not an international business degree program at that university. So I had begun working in a hotel in downtown Houston, just as um, the the hostess at the morning restaurant, the breakfast restaurant, which was like 4 a.m. for a 19, 20-year-old, which was always a lot of fun back then. But it was just kind of the aha moment of when I was trying to figure out which path to take. Someone saying, well, if you want to be in an international business, why wouldn't you just choose hotels? You're already working in them, and there's no more international business than hospitality and hotels. So
Right.
that's when I started looking at the university that I was currently planning to attend, University of Houston, who happens to have one of the top 5 hospitality programs in the country that I'm still very connected with. And then I just sort of started down that route of being in hospitality, and I worked in a few different positions while I was in school, at whether it was the front desk or food and beverage, server, all of those different operational jewels that we kind of have to, pay our dues in, and is incredibly priceless. But and then I finished my degree, but I knew right out of the gate that from the first time I had gone to Las Vegas, I was like, I'm going to Vegas. As soon as I graduate, going to Vegas. But what was interesting is that I had a wholly different life plan, because I had danced my entire life, growing up from age 4 all the way until, I was dancing professionally in Houston for sports teams. And I said, I'm going to Vegas. This is 1996-ish. And I was like, and I am going to be a dancer, not the dancer that you might think of in Las Vegas, but I was going to be,
Thanks for
Siegfried.
clarifying.
Yes, no. I get that question a lot, but I was like, whether it was Siegfried and Roy or it was Cirque du Soleil or all these new things that were happening on the Strip, I was like, that is where I want to be. So I actually moved to Las Vegas, no job, didn't know a soul here, and started that whole audition path of like, I'm going to audition, I'm going to grind the street, I'm going to go and I'm going to get a job dancing in one of these shows. And then slowly but surely you realize that is not as glamorous as it may sound, because back then it was a 6 to 7 day a week job and there were no benefits, no idea when the show might close. So my path quickly shifted, and luckily I had a degree to fall back on. And my mentor, the gentleman that I had worked for at the Westin in Houston, had actually moved to Las Vegas around the same time that my fiance and I at that time had. And he was like, you know what? Just come back to hotels. You have your degree, you have some experience, and let's get you started at Caesar's Palace. So I started my, I would say, kind of real career at Caesar's Palace, and I started as a room reservations agent. And it was before the internet and before all the conveniences that we have today. It was answering the phone, plugging it into a side computer, and making reservations for people at Caesar's Palace. And that started off my career and really my flexibility. Luckily, I had a mentor there that thought, if you can work in one area successfully, or if you can manage one area successfully, then you can move to others, and allowed me the opportunity to move around that building for almost 10 years in every operational capacity you can think of, from room reservations to midnight or over graveyard bell captain, to pool manager, spa manager, business center and concierge. I mean, you name it. So when after I'd spent about 10 years there, and kind of decided, I think I want to take that entrepreneurial jump, right? And I'm going to leave hospitality. There's a need in Las Vegas. It's growing. It's huge. Everybody's moving to Las Vegas. This was probably like 2003, 2004. I am going to open a bridal salon and floral boutique in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be fabulous. And I went down a whole different entrepreneurial road. Loved every minute of it. Never have learned so much in my life than working for myself. But with the economy shift, let's say in 7, 8, 9, that we all know happened in Las Vegas, I had a couple of life occurrences happen. One, got unexpectedly divorced. 2, had an 18-month-old at the time. 3, had opened my businesses and were running them. And 4, the economy takes a huge downturn. So all of the perfect storm of, like, I guess, the other form of WTF. And
decided right now.
What? Oh yeah. So it was my Ava, who Michelle knows, and myself, and we were kind of out there on our own. And I was like, I'm going to make this business work. I'm going to keep it going. And then I get a phone call from the same mentor that I had worked on and off for, not only in Houston, but also in Las Vegas, that said, I have a position here. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Plantation, Florida. He was working as the president of the Atlantis in the Bahamas, and said, I have an opportunity. Will you move to Fort Lauderdale? The first thing out of my mouth was absolutely not. There's no way. I have these businesses that I love. I have a little bit of a support system now. At least my parents had relocated to Las Vegas and were actually a very big help for me. And I had, Ava, who was, less than 3 at the time, and it didn't make sense for us to move. But he said, can I at least convince you to come over, speak to a few people, interview, and see what you think? So I did. I made the trip. I went over, and then, as the story goes, was offered a position and a role I couldn't refuse. So we picked up. We moved our whole life to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I left the businesses open and hired managers to run them, which, hindsight's 2020, right? But so that was, the way that the business was structured there, and the position that I had there was actually a special events type position, but it was really more special projects for him and also for casino special events. So they were planning to sort of evolve their business there into not just being like straight casino tournaments or things like that. They wanted experiences for their casino customer, and they wanted to bring in someone that could also kind of mold that. That wasn't my background, but I had enough operational and enough, hopefully faith from the mentor that I had worked with, that he said, don't worry, you've got this. We'll do it together. And I said, okay, great. So we did move, left the companies going, or the small businesses, and just got situated in Fort Lauderdale. And then the structure of it was there is that you were located in the plantation office, but you flew back and forth to the island. So my stipulation when I took the job was, I will fly back and forth to the island. I will do everything that I need to do. I will try to crush this job and give my 180%. But in the first 6 months, I have to take my 3-year-old with me when I'm flying to the Bahamas, because I don't have anyone that I know in Florida to leave her with. So 35 trips to the Bahamas in 1 year. And I took Ava, 3-year-old, with me to every single trip. Right.
Talking
So,
about super mom. This is amazing.
well,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I have I mean, my walk the floors moments were more like walk the airport moment, which we've all had of those. But I just remember being with Ava and taking her over, and it became, of course, a home away from home. We got there, we had a lot of people that helped us out. Luckily, it was the Atlantis, if you're familiar. I mean, it's like a city in itself, like these mega resorts out here. And it had a kids club, and it had babysitters, and it had, the whole network that you needed. So there would be days that I would, have to drop Ava off in the kids club, go through my whole day, and then an event and a dinner and all different types of things at night. So the young lady that would help me out would actually pick her up from the kids club, take her back to my hotel room, and put her to sleep. And then I would see her at the end of the day. So she, most kids go, this sound, Ava doesn't remember a lot of this, which is like crushing to me, because I'm like, you had the best couple years, because she ran the kids club. She was like the mayor, I mean, most kids would come in there and be there for 3 or 4 days. And she had been there for, how many times, to where she could give the tour, and she could walk you through the aquarium and tell you all the different types of fish in there. And, so anyway, it was a really awesome and special time for us, because one, it was challenging because it was just the two of us, but we just got to experience like so many, like, incredible and unusual things for that period in our lives. And so luckily, and by God's grace, I ran into my husband, who I actually went to high school with. And we went to high school in Texas, and I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and just a few blocks over, he was living in Fort Lauderdale as well, and didn't even know that. Ran into each other on the main street there. Stephanie, you'll know Las Olas.
Oh, yes.
I was there with my neighbor. I run into him. He comes up. Didn't we go to high school together? I'd like to say the rest is history, but it took a 6 months or so to get there. But we were married pretty quickly. We had our daughter Stella. I stayed with the Atlantis and continued to go back and forth, but my roles kind of shifted. I was doing that casino special events and special projects role, and then they were evolving their weddings and celebrations department, not only for Atlantis, but also for the one and only, which is now the Four Seasons on Paradise Island. And so they wanted to build that entire team and kind of put that on the map for destination weddings. And so I was able to build a team and create that. And then, like happens in this industry, different people left the organization, and instead of hiring someone to replace them, they said, oh, great, you can do that too. We've all been through that.
You have an extra set of keys.
Yes. Here's the scenario now. Okay, you did this, so that's great. Now you can have guest activities and entertainment and special events, and we'll just roll that all into the same little category, which, was amazing, but way too much for one person. But it was another little bit of a downturn, and the island had, of course, its seasons, so they tried to keep it pretty thin during the off seasons. But so we got married, and then I was still doing what I was doing, but then it just got to be where it was too much to be doing back and forth. I was kind of phoning in my life to my family. Everything was on FaceTime, the good nights, the good mornings, everything. And then Paul's job was very flexible at the time, so we just decided to pick it up and move over to the island. We lived there for about 1.5 years. I continued that role. That's where I really was able to dive into the entertainment side of things and learn the contracting and the entertainment brokering of different headliners. So we would pull in entertainers for Atlantis Live, whether it be, Lady Gaga or Keith Urban or Alanis Morissette. I mean, you name it. We had, all eras and different niches there for entertainment. And then we also produced a Atlantis Paradise Music Festival, so it was able to pull in like the event side of things also with a music festival experience. So that was like learning through a fire hose, because that was not in my wheelhouse or something that I'd done before. But we were doing it, and it was on an island, and you needed the support and the organizations and the vendors that you could really rely on. And so was there for about a year and a half, with the Atlantis for about 8 years, almost 7-ish. And then the mentor, that is still a very, very good friend of mine, had left about 7 months prior. And, you know, we were all crushed because he was like the heart and soul of that place and loved it and treated everybody like family. And I get the call again, which, you know, goes to a great point of that relationship building, because, you know, you think about which way your life could have gone if, you know, you just made one other decision, or if you wouldn't have met one particular person. And this mentor was that for me. But same call again, many years later. How'd you think about moving back to Las Vegas? Oh, there's no way. We live on an island. Life is great. The girls are in school. We had, you know, Stella in the meantime and moved her over. Of course, we all went over to the island together. Ava was 10. Stella was 5. They were both going to school in the Bahamas, and we were settled in. We were like, 3-5 years, we're going to stay here. This is great. And then, of course, come out, take a look, see what you think.
And you fell for it again.
I know. I'm such a sucker. But my parents had moved here and stayed here. So we were kind of like, oh, you know, what do we do? Because we're having such a great experience right now. But when you move, you know, as we all know, when you move in the hospitality industry out of Vegas and you go to somewhere like an island, it's not that you're forgotten, but you're kind of off the radar. And we're sort of like, do I stay off the radar, or do I jump back into Las Vegas and we just, you know, create a life here? So we decided to make the move, of course. That's why I'm standing here. But we got back here in about 2015, got the girls off of island time and into Las Vegas time, which is like 2 different spectrums of the planet. And then I started at the Venetian at that time as the VP, and I was over event optimization and really a mixture of partnerships and guest satisfaction. So I had like the Medallia platform that reported up to me, and I had this very unusual, not unusual, but just unusual for a hotel and the level that it was being taken, performance excellence type of department. And then that was all in sort of a transition. So I was doing that for quite some time. And then I moved into, because of my background, they were also expanding the weddings and celebrations role. So I built that team. And then eventually I kind of came full circle when we've had a lot of transition here at the Venetian, you know, positive and change and everything, but sometimes it just takes a little while to get used to it. But I moved over to marketing, and then also in the same realm where new things are opening, people transition and move on. We were building, or with MSG, we were building the Sphere, which is coming up beautifully behind us and is due to open at the end of the year. And we needed someone just to take that on and be like the liaison for the property between MSG and the property. So I started in that role and kind of shed off any of the other responsibilities I was taking on. And then COVID happened and everything slowed down. And when people left the company, we would absorb the roles. So now, just to get to that point, is my role is actually overseeing. I still liaise with the MSG, but now we have a larger team that's working on that as well. And then public relations and communications reports to me, as well as events and partnerships, and then community and sustainability. So that's where I am now. And I've been here at the Venetian for about just over 7 years.
That is an incredible journey, Anna. Wow. So cool. There's so much I learned about people I didn't know.
Yeah. Pardon? It's not your normal path, but it's fine. So
but let me tell you this, it's way more normal than you think.
Okay.
In our
yeah.
Yeah. You're not alone.
Yeah, I would have to say too, with that determination, and then also too of having that mentor that really guides you, but then also too is kind of, you know, the path where they're going and relying on you and saying, hey, do you want to take this role or, open this hotel? That we see that often too, where you may be starting off at such a young age and being like, yeah, I'll be out of here in like 5 years. I'll never see you again. And now like 20, 30 years later, and you're like, oh yeah.
No, it is. And then it's also just like, taking on that, leadership way of thinking that you don't have to necessarily start at the front desk with the goal of being the vice president of hotel operations. It's like, I mean, there are so many roles within hospitality, and even expanding more. When I speak to classes and when I was at UNLV for a little while teaching, I would say, I'm like, you're looking at a huge organization that has every role that you could possibly imagine. So it's not just you have to go into hotel to be in hospitality or to be in, hotel operations or food and beverage, and that's really it. Now, you can be in cybersecurity, you can be an IT expert. You can, we have someone that's over our entire security canine unit. At Atlantis, we had a director of dolphins. It's like, there are no limits to what you can do in this field. So
fantastic. That's such a great nugget for our audience. We have a lot of people on the other side who are emerging leaders who are still trying to figure out, how do I move from one place to the next, and what is out there for me? And that's so great. It's such a great example of that. It's more like a jungle gym, and you can continuously reinvent your career in this industry, especially when you work for a larger organization or a big resort where there is so much there for you to do. I think that what's important is two things. One is raising your hand and signing up, and then showing up as your best self. And then on the other hand, the importance of having that mentor, who in your case, I want to say it was more like a sponsor. It's that higher level of mentorship where now you can lean in and say, this person really believes in me, and it's going to name drop, right? And they, he came back or she came back and recruited you. And I think it's critical.
It definitely turned into that. And I would like to think we've benefited both ways, but I also, of course, think that most of the benefit came to me. But it's also just really the relationship with someone on a work level where we could finish each other's sentences, and it would almost really get, probably aggravating for people, because it would be a whole new group of people in a room at any of these organizations. And we would be talking about a certain topic, and it would be like, remember when and I'd be like, did this, and this. And he's like, how'd you know I was going to say that? And I'm like, because we lived it together, and I knew that this story was going to that, So I think that it's relationship, it's building your skill sets and having a diverse background, but it's also just that familiarity and trust that, this person's gets where I'm coming from. I could be as weird and out of the box as I need to be, and they're still going to know exactly where I'm trying to get to, So
I love that.
Awesome.
Anna, what's your WTF moment, if you can narrow it down to one?
No, this is where I had trouble with, because I was like, in operations, you can think of all different, times where you've had to step in and where you've had to, or watched a leader step in. But my personal, which I usually go back to, is really just when I landed in Fort Lauderdale with a 3-year-old by myself, and no contacts and no car and no nothing. And all of a sudden, just through the process, realized what I was capable of. I've never felt just accomplished. A lot of people get divorced. A lot of people are single parents and doing an incredible job at it. But when it lands on you and you realize, like, it's me and her, and we're going to figure this out together, it is a definite, for me, that was a big moment of like being present and being, in the moment, and understanding how defining this was in my life. But in the professional world, it has really just been when I was writing down all my examples, and they all came back to the type of leader that I wanted to be. And that was through not only my mentor, but other people that I respect. But it was also just that, that really, just trying to be as engaging and empathetic and involved and present on a daily basis for every single person that reports to me. And that's knowing, not everything, but the things that are important to them, their why, what's taking them to the next level, and really being the mentor that my mentor was for me. But in anything, if I look at my events, if I look at the guest satisfaction part, if I look at my own business, it was just really being present and available and at the front of, just if there was an event going on and one of my managers was leading it, I was there in the back, even carrying bags or doing what I needed to do, because I needed them to know that I was in it with them. And so I think, I don't know what all that came out to, or if that's even a WTF moment, but it's all come back to taking the time to recognize and celebrate and communicate and be there for your team in a way that they know that, they could really count on you for anything. So it sounds sort of general, but I think over 30 years in this, in this field, that's always what it's come back to me. Be myself. It's okay to bring emotion into the workplace. Be authentic in the way you handle your team members, or you work with your team members and the guest. And you don't have to leave your personality or yourself at home when you come to work. Bring it all in, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I love it.
That. It's amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for giving us your insights and journey. I think this gave a lot of information to our listeners and viewers, and truly appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. It was a little bit therapeutic. Thanks for letting me put it all out there.
You're very welcome. Thank you for walking the floors with us. And it's always great. WTF moments don't necessarily stem out of bad, right? Sometimes it's that realization or that moment when you say, wow, this is it. Just like you. And it's the first WTF story where we get someone to do it along with the 3-year-old. So kudos to you. Thank you for sharing your career with us and for helping enlighten those out there and those who are walking the floor to get to where they need to be. And we hope to have you back soon, and we can talk a little more maybe about your partnerships and what Venetian is doing and all those beautiful things.
That would be great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.